We were once enveloped in a sea mist which rose from the still waters of the Adriatic, swaddling the ship in a blanket of white fog, which fogged our minds and our view. We had already been becalmed, and now with this cloaking, we fell into a somnambulous dream. Each man became an island wrapped in his own thoughts, each one listless and lost. The self-sane men I had seen curse gods, wives, captains, and themselves as they fought through mountainous seas, had watched them bury friends at sea with no sign of raw emotion. Now reduced to children, I swear I saw more than one man weep that day, heard cursing dogs' prayers, learned that the heartless bastards that had cutlassed a man could be afraid of the one thing he couldn't control: himself. For in this conflicted state, the only voice we had was our own. No ship sea lapping, no creak and groan of ship's boards, no curse from above or below, just this silence and our own thoughts. He that commendeth me to mine own content commends me to the thing I cannot get. I to the world am like a drop of water that in the ocean seeks another drop, who falling there to find his fellow forth, unseen, inquisitive, confounds himself. So I, to find another, to find a mother and a brother, in quest of them, unhappy, lose myself. At the time, I was heartless, heedless of the pain yet to come, did not understand how this closed silence could be so feared by men who had shown no fear in the face of death. But now, in this solitude, when I have only my own heartbeat to accompany me, and when I am trapped within the fog of my own past, I understand how I can be killed by silence. For in that silence, I hear once again and again your name, Sebastian. My name is Antonio, and I am an addict. I am addicted to love. I'm addicted to that moment when you know you would, could, should die for this form who... I'm addicted to that moment of eternal sighs and possibilities when the fruit in the bowl is on the verge of perfection before the decay of reality. I am addicted to falling in love, and time again I have fallen. So far from the grace that is sense, have made a fool of myself for what? His lips, his skin, his indifference. I'm addicted to love, like a swimmer is addicted to that which will one day drown him. I'm drowned in the impossibility of love. His love. But your love cannot drown me. I'm done with my dying. The water sustains me without even trying. The water can't drown me. I'm done with my dying. You expect me to slip below the waves, perhaps, to drown here in this bath, slit my wrists and slide into oblivion. Perhaps this brandy is laced with herbs, bitter herbs, with death's kiss. Fear not. The only kiss that awaits me is my own John Swan. Who he? John Swan is the dream of every homosexual sailor. A boy who is a man. John Swan is my kiss of life, if not the love of, then certainly a life raft to me, for he did rescue me from the sea. A man can drown in less than 2 inches of water. So what chance for me when your love was sea fathoms deep? Shallower waters may not hold the drama of deep seas, but they can drown nevertheless. And I am lucky, for every night I drown in kisses, even if I fake my last breath. I suppose I should begin at the beginning. Each drowning has one, I suppose, but which one? The spring of the river that leads to the sea, the wind that blows the ship off course, that sees 2 children, twins, cast into the roaring waves, or the one which starts with me, the spring of eternal desire that can never be quenched, the rising tide which lacks reason and yet sustains me. Oh, if you had seen him, if you had seen him desperately cast upon the shore, his hair splayed out like Botticelli's Venus, I thought him drowned. Dead. In truth, I thought him not a he at all, but a she. So pure his skin, so subtle blue his lips, such fine features. He lay like porcelain upon the sand. A miracle it was that he wasn't broken into 1,000 pieces. The waves had all but stripped him, and if he breathed, then it was a sparrow's breath, no more. I thought him surely dead. And I knelt by his side and wished me dead as well, wished me drowned alongside him, and in that moment I had never been so lost, so found, so saved, and yet so utterly drowned and in love. This was the beginning of my sea mist. This was our saltwater baptism, and for the next 6 months I was to be your consort, 2 ships steering the same course, I in the lee of your love, unaware of how buffeted I would be when you left. Oh my God. I've painted such a picture of beauty and ignored the sad reality. So me, so very me. I still stank from last night's drink, was shipwrecked myself upon this shore, albeit from the waves of wine, brandy, and sordid toilet kisses. And this flotsam knelt beside this sweet jetsam and thought that he inhabited the same world, like a golem kneeling beside an angel, reflecting the beauty he saw, unaware of his savagery and base features, till reflections caught, or until coarse hands, gnarled from rope and sea salt, sun-burnt to tobacco brown, came to rest on translucent skin. Savage beast I, who wished to die, but in death, who would have found us and wondered how beauty came to lie next to beast, what conjoined them in this last embrace. I'd heard that in London they revived the drowned by blowing smoke up their arse of the waterlogged dead. So common was the practice that on the Thames walls were hung the equipment to administer this last rite. I had none, just a cheap cigar and my lips. Well, in truth, I'm not sure who was more embarrassed, him or me. Certainly it was the strangest of first kisses, and it is so hard to frame the right kind of greeting when rising from the parted buttocks of this kipper. Antonio, and you are? I carried him further ashore, eventually carrying him to my hovel, blanketed him, poured warmed, spiced brandy down his throat, and made a warm bath, slowly reviving his pale blue skin to a delicate rose pink. And my first heartbreak began. For in his incoherent mumblings, his same name, Viola, I thought, a girlfriend? A wife? I hoped it, cheap harlot. In truth, as I began to realise he spoke of another who had been with him on board the ship, I hoped whoever she was drowned, so that I could be his comfort in this hour of need. Please. I know, don't look at me that way. The next day, barely recovered, he had me clothe him, for he was penniless, and to help him search the beaches and coves for his sister. We spent the day finding nothing but wreckage. Sometimes, from afar, sea-soaked sails would wrap themselves silky-like into forms that looked like but never were she, And all the while the sea roared in our ears, and the words that I whispered as I followed him like the foam of the sea whipped into the air to float in dances which nobody, least he, took note of. The despondency that follows me feels somewhat like a shipwrecked man who spies a sail, sees himself saved, and suddenly remembers that the lens of his spyglass has a flaw, a blurred spot, the sail he has seen. I'm a sailor, and I've had my share of loneliness. Vast seas with no shores in sight, lone gulls crying alongside sailors, longing for the lovers that were half true, half lie, and all fiction romance. On the Oceania, I danced a waltz with a sailor who cried into my shoulder till my shirt was soaked. That night he stepped ashore, though no shore was there, just the beckoning sea, our mistress. Drowned, and now in the arms of Davy Deep, he cries still and fills the sea with salt tears. All the sea is the tears of sailors, some drowned, some drowning, all lost, all longing for the names that they tattoo upon their arms and chests, to take them and embrace them. Huge sailors, chests like barrels, crying for their mothers, scarred jacks who could flatten a town to destruction, on their knees longing for arms softer than their own to hold them one last time. Kraken and monsters I have seen, and never beat so afraid that I was that day that I looked into your eyes and realized that I would never love like this again, and that you would never love me the way I loved thee. Oh, I would rather the teeth of great white sharks than your smile. I would rather the tentacles of the giant octopus squeeze the breath from my body than the embrace of your arms, ever, ever again. For you killed me, Sebastian. Killed me. As sure as any rapier cleaved me in twain, sense from heart, brain from loin, soul from sin. And I was scared, Sebastian, truly scared, for you opened a place in my heart that I had like an open wound, poured hot tar in to solidify and harden, and thought, save me. We searched to no avail, and for 3 months we spent days slowly reduced from hope to despair as he swept horizons, beaches, dunes and coves for his twin. We asked on quays for news of found bodies, talked with fishermen and merchants, spoke with Africans, Italians, Spanish, and sailors from all continents. The docks awash with spices and trading goods were silent of any trade in her whereabouts. And I drifted in his wake, his interpreter, his vassal, a lapdog, a slave to love. Oh, beautiful. Oh, beloved. Oh, sweet freedom. God has given us all the treasures in you. You are the true source of all our glory. You are the only decoration of this Dubrava. All silver, all gold, all human lives cannot repay your pure beauty. Not Sebastian. Dubrovnik, my home. Home to humanists, painters, scientists and poets. The first European city to abolish slavery. Yes! The first city to abolish slavery, and yet I willingly enslaved myself to you. All silver, all gold, all human lives I willingly would have forgone for you. Our patron saint, Saint Blaise, the patron saint of wool combers and ailments of the throat. On his way to be executed for being a Christian, he stopped to bless and thus save a child who had a fishbone stuck in his throat. And now he is the saint of throat ailments. I stopped to bless a dead youth and became the saint of lost causes. Well, would have if St. Jude hadn't already stolen that accolade. Or was that St. Bartholomew? No. He was the patron saint of desperate causes, much more my kind of saint. For I wasn't just lost, I was desperate. Though, in my dreams, I am, of course, Saint Sebastian, pierced by 100 arrows, dying so tragically, but so beautiful. Sadly, I have the body of my age, and therefore it would no longer make men and women weep, but would have them instead avert their eyes. Beauty is wasted on youth. You should get more beautiful the more you experience life. Instead, we grow more ugly the more beauty we contain, almost as if love were a cancer that decayed the body from the inside. Strange, then, how for some it is the light that makes them glow. Like Mosquito Bay in Puerto Rico, where at night the waves tumble onto shore and they leave behind a glow. Like stars in their wake. Truly, the first time I saw this, I thought that heaven had touched the earth, that my time had come. You, Sebastian, were my Mosquito Bay, phosphorescing. You created your own stars. My loneliness, a black dog trailing a master who knew not that he was even there. I was all drool, all tail wagging. Oh God! How I wanted him to throw me a bone, one word, one look. I held him as he cried. We did not dance. After months of searching, he had all but succumbed to the knowing that she was lost, drowned, and would never be found. For him, this unknowing was the deepest pain. We sailors bind our dead and place them into the sea. Sailors, we have no burial ground, no earth we can hold and kneel upon, no flowers to mark our resting place. We are forever restless, and seaweed is our bouquet. I had taken my leave for a few moments, a piss break in some dark alley, and when I returned to the lamp-lit bar, I saw that I had lost him. For he was all fire, all exuberance, poring over a sea chart with some old sea dog who was indifferent to my glare. His rheumatic fingers ebbing and flowing across the chart, showing currents and landfalls on shores more distant than mine. Illyria! Had I heard of Illyria? An excited and excitable Sebastian stabbed finger at the one shore that I could not call my destiny, bound as I was from ever setting foot there on pain of death, for there was no welcome in Illyria but the Bridport dagger, the hangman's noose. But he now, all spark, all fire, had already mapped out his journey, had imagined her alive in Illyria and was bound for its border. And the old man smiled at me, surprised, he said, that I had not myself seen the possibility that the currents could have landed two people on two shores. I bought him a brandy to thank him for his wisdom, wanted to spit piss into his toothless mouth. Of course I knew. I had steered Sebastian away from that one idea, lighthoused him around potential rocks of truth, intercepted other conversations like this which escaped my navigation for one piss. Sebastian made preparations and was bound for Illyria the next day. I walked him to the border, the weight of loss already heavy upon me. The gentleness of all the gods go with thee. I have many enemies in Orsino's court, else would I very shortly see thee there. My resolution so short-lived. But come what may, I do adore thee so, that danger shall seem sport, and I will go. Yes, so smitten was I, that I gladly crossed the border to follow him to dance the hemp jig on this blue Monday. God! Where for my pride? Where for my dignity? Did I not roll over like a pup to be stroked? Did I not fawn and scrape and abase myself before thee? Love is an ass that makes an ass and leaves men weak, open to all manner of pain. I caught up with him, all breathless. I could not stay behind. My desire, more sharp than filed steel, did spur me forth, and not all loved to see you, though so much as might have drawn one to a longer voyage, but jealousy what might befall your travel, being skilless in these parts, which to a stranger unguided and unfriended often prove rough and unhospitable. My willing love, the rather by these arguments of fear set forth in your pursuit. I risked so much for you, and you noticed me not. Well, next I knew, you were off to buy some trifle, some small thing for your amusement with my money. Well spent. Haply your eye shall light upon some toy you have desired to purchase, and your store, I think, is not for idle market, sir. And your store, I think, is not for idle market, sir. Oh, dear Lord God, shoot me! What a tart! What a fumbling mass of desire and innuendo! It fell on deaf ears, mind you. Off he traipsed to explore and shop, and no doubt make others swoon. How little did I know. How little did I know. For within the space of a few short hours, he was betrothed to be married. Yes, out of my grasp for a few moments, and some rich bag of lust engulfs him and asks him to marry her. And she being a countess, well, I wonder what could have attracted the young Sebastian to this rich older woman. No, I'm ahead of myself. I waited at the Elephant, intending to stay in hiding until my young swain did reappear. But once again, my desire and my pining did drive me on to once again put my head within the noose and walk the streets of Illyria. In trepidation I kept to the shadows, intending to keep myself to myself until I could draw some reason from you and have you consider me in your plans. To search for your sister, be she dead or alive, was our goal, and yet so random your methods that I knew not where you would be till I did spy thee. I did spy thee in a mild ruckus with two of the most drunk and unthreatening of villains. Now, I should have, for sport, held my tongue and my place, and watched as you annihilate them both, but to my surprise, found myself upon my feet as your bodyguard, placing myself valiantly betwixt yourself and these fops. Mayhaps I did hope that this show of death-defying manliness would somehow bolster myself in your opinion, when in truth these Gauls, this Toby Belch and Andrew Ague-Cheek, were nothing more than wild swinging barroom fighters, brave only from liquor and scared of their own shadows. If anything, my valiance marked me out as an overprotecting mothering hen, less a heroic lover. Once again I fell upon my sword to find myself falling upon a toy dagger, my bravery wasted upon this theatre of pretence. And isn't all theatre pretence? Are we not all pretending in some way or another to impress another? For love, for power, for the child within, for the hope of fulfillment. Now perhaps you are built of more rigid stuff, but even stout-hearted ships of English oak can break their backs, crushed by nothing more than water, when water is so heaved up that its weight made timbers to balsa. Such is the stuff, love, which can reduce brave-hearted man to fearful wreck, the same stuff of weak poetry and flimsy promises and fleeting passions, like water turned from blissful shower to terrifying torrent. How fearful water can be to a sailor. You know, most people think that sailors can swim, but in truth, so few of us can. For we know that once in the sea, you are better off with a quick death than to linger in hope. In the warm waters of the Indies, you can live for days until the sharks. And in the cold seas of the north, your death is nothing but horror. I swear, if I fell into those seas, I would wish me drowned, for the freezing clutch of agony that is the ice-packed seas is a death that I would not wish upon even my worst enemy. No, true sailors do not learn to swim. They learn instead to respect the sea and to stay on heaving decks like children clinging to a mother's breast. We saved once a man who had fallen overboard, scraped from our decks by the overhang of an iceberg which rushed at us from the mist unseen. Tangled as he was in the ropes, now tendrils, he was lucky to be dragged half mad upon our decks, and though it had been but seconds, the core of his body and soul was frozen, and the pain in his eyes was so deep that it would have made a shallow of the Mariana Trench. Many times, too many, I had borne witness to Richter's set in corpse, but I have never before seen a rictus inhabit a man while still alive. This frozen prison cracked his bones and first bleached, then blackened his skin, till each of us stood frozen, each with the same thought: for God's sake, kill him! Kill him! Sebastian. You were my iceberg, and you killed me, and kill me still. I'm frozen now out of love, forever dying while somehow still alive. I would cry, but even salt water freezes in such Arctic temperatures. Leaving the safety of my small room, my intent to rescue Sebastian from himself, for myself, I would find Sebastian and then wrestle him home until, stock taken, we could discuss the best strategy to find his sister, dead or alive, and save my neck and soul. But come the close of this mock battle, I was arrested, my figure and face being too well known, and did then turn to you, Sebastian, for my purse, which I had of late given thee, and oh, you did disown me, stating that you had no knowledge of myself or my visage. The vast sea of love spurned and now swelled, did scourge the shingles of my emotions to block my harbour, did alter all landmass in one storm that would change the course of ships and the course of man. This man. I broke, Sebastian. Broke. Like a fragile ship on ragged rocks of your indifference. Then I would have gladly placed my head within the noose and stepped upon the chair and kicked away my own scaffold, would gladly have betrayed thee and hurt thee, O callous, callous youth. You would have thought that I, of all people, who had kept my true self hidden from my fellow man, would have seen another in disguise. But so blinded was I with love that I did see you, and not your twin. Did throw myself in valour for your defence, when in truth I was defending the wrong sex. Having never met your sister, I did not realise how close your resemblance, how the apple had been cleaved in two. I was betrayed by your sister, who I mistook for you. You betrayed my love for the arms and bed of a woman who you had but a fleeting acquaintance of. For whilst I fought a shambolic victory and arrest, and did suffer in false pain, you were accepting offers of marriage to a woman you had but a few moments before met. I'm inconsistent in my choice of lovers, have been rash in lewd sexual moments of heat, but to take to marriage in but a few steps, to give yourself with such speed, speaks more of the life of a mayfly than of a man. If you had but 24 hours then to plight your troth at the midday, does sense make of necessity. But for a life of 80 years or more, did you love her? Did you fall so hard that all breath was taken from you? Would you have laid down and drowned by her side? Would you have placed your head inside a noose for this scow? I have watched captains lost in fog so deep you could cut them with a knife. Wait for a glimpse of star or moon to save them from rocks or the end of the earth, and seen them make more sense of nothing but a swaying needle of metal made magnetic than I could ever make sense of your destiny. I'm sure the gods on high, looking down, did scratch with wonder their heads at your recklessness, did laugh till tears became a monsoon on some hapless people. Sebastian, if one did not know better, one would say that you are either a tart with no brain or a gold-digging cock with no morals. Oh, how you did fall like the albatross, so heavy upon her ample decks. Her poop deck somewhat overhanging, giving an appearance of a top-heavy man-of-war, liable to capsize in from a rush of men to her railings. Now what indeed could a youth so full of life see in this older woman with power and status, her jewels, so obvious, mine hidden below the plimsoll line. And then torture upon torture, had to stand shackled before the Duke and your now promised wife to see your double and realise my idiocy. Had to make my plea. A witchcraft drew me hither. That most ungrateful boy there by your side, from the rude seas enraged and foamy mouth did I redeem. A wreck past hope he was, his life I gave him, and did thereto add my love without retention or restraint, all his in dedication. For his sake did I expose myself pure for his love into the danger of this adverse town. The Duke Orsino, no friend of mine, accused me of piracy, as if he didn't pirate his own waters. Let us not forget how he did fall in love with his beloved Viola, not as a young woman, but dressed as she was in disguise as a young man, one Cesario. How he wished he could have blown smoke up her ass. Who knows? Maybe he does. Now there would be a sight to see. The Duke protested my presence in Illyria a corruption to the court, no less. If music be the food of love, play on. Give me excess of it, that surfeiting the appetite may sicken and so die. That strain again it had a dying fall. Oh, it came o'er my ear like the sweet sound that breathes upon a bank of violets, stealing and giving odour. Enough no more. 'Tis not so sweet now as it was before. O spirit of love, how quick and fresh art thou, that notwithstanding thy capacity receiveth as the sea, naught enters there of what validity and pitch soe'er, but falls into abatement and low price, even in a minute, so full of shapes and fancies that it alone is high fantastical. And I'm the corrupter, the homosexual. Methinks the Queen doth protest too much. For taken away, cast over the gunwales of your borders, I was left shipwrecked on the dry land of my own country, to a land inhabited with naught but gossip and rumours. I died so many nights, drifted to become my own shallows, died in the arms of bad troubadours who could sing my pain, took to any drug that would swamp my decks. Oh, Sebastian, the only true home for a sailor was the sea. But even in her mass, she could not wash you away from me. No Portuguese man of war could sting me like you had to my core. And no rope lash, no gunpowder burn would ever leave its mark like you. And this tattoo. Aristophanes describes the origin of love. He says humans were originally conjoined, with each pair making a complete person, a whole. Some of these pairs were both male, some both female, and some partnerships contained a male and a female. However, Zeus decided to punish humans for their arrogance, splitting the creatures down the middle and detaching ourselves from our literal other halves. We're all bound to search for our other halves to make ourselves whole. Zeus, however, played one more trick on man, for my whole being belongs to another, and I am left adrift, a sea anchor forever holding me back, stopping me from breaking free. For in short, dear Sebastian, I love thee. And Zeus looks down and laughs till he is filled with cramps. I do believe that Zeus hates the gays. And so I found myself betwixt wind and water, adrift on my own shores once more, no longer in your lee, and in the finest traditions of sailors I descended once more to rum, sodomy, and the lash, to find myself once more adrift with the worst of enemies, mine own self. He that commends me to mine own content commends me to the thing I cannot get. I to the world am like a drop of water that in the ocean seeks another drop, who falling there to find his fellow forth, unseen, inquisitive, confounds himself. So I to find a mother and a brother, in quest of them, unhappy, lose myself. But I did not lose myself, for your siren cry was ever present in my sober moments, and it is hard to drown out all sobriety, for even the most roaring of drunks can by accident find himself sober and becalmed. I posted letters, soaked in brine, and came there no reply. 6 months of tear-stained pleases fell upon deaf ears, walls of oak, till I did discover that my letters had been intercepted by the Duke, still jealous of our contact and wary of my reputation. And so I reverted to my pirate past and smuggled letters in casks of spices, my words peppered, full of heat, and salted in the brine of my pain. And then one siren letter from you to give this sailor hope. You recounted your anger at discovering the Duke's deception. Tell how you had felt the loss of our friendship, had thought me lost forever. Recounted your marriage days, your future hopes and dreams, and your fervent desire to know more about how things stood with me. How things stood with me. Stands any man when his legs have been lopped? No, Sebastian, I stood not. I was felled and cried like a sailor adrift on a raft and alone. But then more letters came. My sea filled with dolphins, giant sea turtles, whales and porpoises, awash with glittering jellyfish. I was still drowning, but now I was life-buoyed by your words, your love of life, and by tantalizing insights and love. A different love, not the passion I longed for, but a love nonetheless. I am bound for Illyria, godfather to Sebastian's children, twins, no less, Andrea and Antonia. Olivia says that I spoil them both too much. According to the Duke Orsino, I am a corrupting influence on the court, so closet. Sebastian has promised that once they are old enough, I can take them both to sea. In the meantime, a toy galleon for young Antonio and a pair of yellow stockings for Andrea, not cross-gartered. They are her favourite colour, we both decided. Antonio has Sebastian's lips and eyes, such light blue eyes. Andrea has her mother's hips and hair on her upper lip. I have, over the years, had lovers, but not felt love. Been desired, but desired not. Had hoped that memory would fade, but you are tattooed still in my heart, not skin deep. I set my love letters to sea, to drown if that is to be, or to find shores upon which they can invade another's heart. For I have found a love, baptized in brine both. He now, my Sebastian, and I his John Swan. I pirate his waters, both of us taking no prisoners and claiming treasures in each other's arms. The compass of my love will ever point to your true north, But this false north is a map which happily leads me astray by small degrees each day. I drift from your true course to find myself a new land, and the distance now so great that the small degree has cast a vast and unimaginable sea betwixt you and me. I'm not sad, my true Sebastian, for I have found and known your love, and now can love yours as mine. Have found arms that embrace me before those of Davy Deep. I cry, Sebastian, but tears water our growth. My seas are calmer now. My love has brought me to a cove which shelters me from your tempestuous love, which I would have drowned. So, this then is my love letter to all the Antonios, to the shipwrecked hearts of oak, the barnacled bottomed barks, and the schooner jennies left adrift. Here's to all the Antonios. May you find your matelotage. May you find your consort, your own John Swan. Now the land that I knew is a dream, and the line on the distance grows faint. So wide is my river, the horizon a sliver. The artist has run out of paint. Where the blue of the sea meets the sky, and the big yellow sun leads me home. I'm everywhere now, the way is a vow, to the wind of each breath by and by. The water sustains me without even trying. The water can't drown me, I'm done with my That's it.